Girlfriend cheated after 8 years and 3 kids. Let's start all over again, but for now, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who'd sit in his truck at midnight, staring at his phone like it was a live grenade. But here I was, 28 years old, 3 kids asleep in the house behind me, and a woman inside who just shattered 8 years of trust in one night. It started in January. A gut feeling, the kind that gnaws at you when your partner's eyes linger just a second too long on their phone. I wasn't a jealous guy, never had been, but something about the way she'd been distant, the way she'd sigh when I touched her shoulder, set off alarms in my head. So I looked, and there they were, pictures she'd sent to some guy from work. Explicit, intimate, the kind meant for a man who wasn't me. Confronting her was like watching a dam break. Tears, apologies, the whole script. She swore it was just once. Some guy she barely knew. A ride home, a moment of weakness. She said she regretted it, that it meant nothing. But then why send those pictures after? Why not tell me? Why not block him the second it happened? I sat across from her at the kitchen table, hands shaking, voice steady only because I'd spent the last decade learning how to keep my cool when life kicked me in the teeth. You threw us away for a stranger? She looked hollow. I don't know why I did it. That was the worst part. Not the anger, not the betrayal, the emptiness in her answer, like she didn't even recognize herself. I started therapy after that. SSRIs, too, because some nights I'd lie awake wondering if I even knew the woman sleeping next to me. Was this really the first time? Was it just a mistake? Or was there more? The house, the kids, the dogs, everything we built felt like it was balanced on a knife's edge, and I had no idea if it was worth trying to save. But then, neither did she. The therapist's office smelled like lavender and old books. I sat in a too-soft chair, gripping my knees, feeling like an imposter. What the hell am I doing here? Dr. Reynolds, gray hair, kind eyes, the kind of guy who looked like he'd heard every sad story in the book, leaned forward. So, what brings you in today? I laughed, sharp and humorless. My girlfriend slept with some guy from work. No sugarcoating, no easing into it, just the ugly truth laid bare. He nodded, unfazed. And how does that make you feel? How the hell do you think it makes me feel? But I bit back the sarcasm. That's not why I was here. Like I'm drowning, I admitted. 1 minute, I'm fine. The next, I'm replaying everything. Every text, every late shift, every time she seemed distracted. Was she thinking about him? Was she lying to me then, too? Dr. Reynolds scribbled something in his notebook. Do you want to stay with her? The question hit like a punch. I'd spent weeks swinging between rage and numbness, but I hadn't let myself really ask that. Not honestly. I don't know. I said finally, I love her, but love isn't the problem. It's trust. And I don't know if that's something you can just glue back together. That night, she was waiting for me at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. How was it? She asked quietly. I shrugged. Weird, but helpful maybe. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then out of nowhere, she said, I'll quit my job. I blinked. What? If that's what it takes. If you need me to never see him again, I'll walk out tomorrow. There was desperation in her voice, but also something else, resolve, like she was finally fighting for us. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I just felt tired. It's not about the job, I said. It's about why it happened in the first place. She looked down, tears hitting the table. I don't know why. And that, more than anything, terrified me. Because if she didn't know, how could I ever be sure it wouldn't happen again? I woke up to the sound of rain against the bedroom window, the kind of steady, gray drizzle that makes the whole world feel like it's holding its breath. Next to me, she was still asleep, her back turned to me, the sheets pulled tight around her shoulders like a shield. I used to watch her sleep all the time. Back when we first got together, when the kids were just a far-off idea and the house was still an empty showy filled with laughter and IKEA furniture. I'd study the way her eyelashes fluttered, the way her lips parted just slightly, and think, this is it. This is the woman I'll grow old with. Now, I couldn't even reach out to touch her without wondering if she'd flinch. The memory hit me hard that afternoon while I was fixing a leak under the kitchen sink, because of course the damn sink chose now to break. Kneeling on the floor, wrench in hand, I suddenly remembered the first time we painted this room. We were 21 and stupid, covered in primer splatters, arguing over whether seafoam green was a real color or something she'd made up. She flicked a brush at me, leaving a streak across my cheek, and I grabbed her around the waist, spinning her until we both collapsed onto the drop cloth, laughing like idiots. Now, the walls were the same color, but the woman who picked them out felt like a stranger. "Daddy, why are you sad?" My youngest, Liam, barely 3, stood in the doorway, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. Kids notice everything. I wiped my hands on a rag and forced a smile. "Not sad, buddy, just thinking." "About Mommy?" The question knocked the wind out of me. Before I could answer, tiny arms wrapped around my neck. "It's okay," he whispered, like he was the parent and I was the kid. "I get sad sometimes, too." I held him tight, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and crayons, and wonder how the hell we got here. That night, I found her sitting on the back porch, staring at the rain. I handed her a coffee, black, 2 sugars, the way she'd drunk it since college, and sat beside her. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then, softly, "Do you remember our first apartment?" She let out a shaky laugh. "The one with the stove that only worked if you jiggled the knob? And the shower that went ice cold after 5 minutes. We were happy there," she said, and it wasn't a question. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the girl I'd fallen for. But I also saw the woman who'd looked me in the eye and lied. The past couldn't fix this. But maybe, just maybe, it could help us understand how to move forward. Her mother called it the darkness. I'd heard the term before, in passing. Something about her college years, a rough patch she didn't like to talk about. But it wasn't until last night, sitting on the edge of our bed with her hands shaking in her lap, that I finally understood what it meant. "I didn't feel anything," she whispered. "Not with him. Not with anyone. Not even with the kids, sometimes." The confession landed like a gut punch. "It's like I'm watching my life through a window," she said, staring at the wall like it held answers. "I love you. I love them. But some days I just go numb. I wanted to be angry. Hell, part of me was angry. But looking at her, really looking, I saw something worse than guilt. I saw fear. The kind that comes from realizing you're not who you thought you were." The kids crashed to the house like tiny tornadoes, oblivious of the tectonic shift between their parents. I made pancakes, burned the first batch, while she sipped coffee in silence, her eyes distant. "You should have told me," I said finally, flipping a sad-looking Mickey Mouse onto a plate. "I didn't know how. Before you screwed some guy would have been a good start." The words came out harsher than I meant, but I didn't take them back. She flinched but didn't argue. That was the worst part. "I need to know something," I said, cornering her in a laundry room because it was the only place the kids wouldn't follow. "Was it really just that once?" Her hand stilled on the laundry basket. "Yes." "And the pictures?" "I don't know." She slammed the basket down, towels spilling onto the floor. "Maybe I wanted to feel wanted. Maybe I'm just F asterisk asterisk ed up. I don't have some grand explanation, okay?" Asterisk. For the first time since this started, she looked as lost as I felt. Not the pretty kind of crying. The ugly, gasping kind. The kind that leaves you hollow. I didn't join her. Didn't say a word. Just sat on the bathroom floor with my back against the door, listening to the water drown her out, wondering if this was how marriages die. Not with a bang, but with a whimper and a pile of damp towels on the floor. The text came through at 2:37 a.m. Unknown number. "Hey man, we need to talk." I stared at the glowing screen, my stomach twisting. I didn't need to ask who it was. Some part of me had known this was coming. I could have ignored it, deleted it, blocked the number, and pretended I never saw it. But I didn't. Me about what? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Unknown number. About her. Not some dramatic confrontation in a rain-soaked parking lot. Just two tired guys in a half-empty Denny's, nursing bad coffee under fluorescent lights. He was younger than I expected, early 20s, maybe, scruffy beard, nervous hands. Looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. I didn't know, he blurted before I'd even sat down. About you, the kids, any of it. I studied his face, the guilt in his eyes, the way his knee bounced under the table. He wasn't lying. She told me she was single, he said quietly. Just got out of something messy. I believed her. The waitress refilled our cups. Neither of us touched them. Why reach out now? I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. Because if someone did that to my sister, I'd want to know. I kept replaying his words. She cried after, not like guilt tears, more like frustrated. Said she kept ruining everything. Asked me not to tell anyone. Said her life was complicated. Man, I swear if I'd known, I believed him. That was the worst part. Took one look at my face and went pale. Where were you? I tossed my phone onto the counter. The text was still open. Her breath hitched. Oh, God. He didn't know, I said flatly. Tears welled in her eyes. I know. You lied to him, too. The silence that followed was deafening. Not out of spite, not even out of anger. Just because for the first time since it started, I finally saw the whole picture, and I had no idea what to do with it. The sound of shattering glass woke me at 3:12 a.m. I bolted upright on the couch, disoriented, heart hammering. For a second, I thought it was a dream until I heard the choked sob from the kitchen. She stood barefoot amidst the wreckage of our wedding china, the fancy set her mother gave us when Liam was born, still in its box because we'll save it for special occasions. Shards glittered around her ankles like cruel confetti. I couldn't sleep, she whispered. I should have been angry. Should have yelled about the mess, the waste, the symbolism of it all. Instead, I stepped over broken plates and pulled her into my arms. She collapsed against me, her tears hot on my neck. I don't know how to fix this. Neither do I admitted. And for the first time since December, we were honest with each other. Liam's tiny gasp at the kitchen threshold. Who broke all the pretty dishes? She knelt beside him, careful of the debris. Mommy had an accident. I'm sorry, baby. It's okay, he said solemnly, patting her cheek. Daddy fixes things. The innocent faith in those words cut deeper than any accusation. That's progress. I snorted. It's feeling something. That's step one. I picked at the armrest. What's step two? Deciding if you both still want the same future. The question hung between us, heavy as an anvil. No accusations, no defenses, just two exhausted people at a crossroads. I need to know, I said, voice raw. Do you even want this? Us? The whole damn life? She stared at her wedding ring, the one she wore despite never making it official. I think I forgot how to want anything. The admission should have devastated me. Instead, it felt like the first solid ground we'd stood on in months. Then we start there, I said, and when she reached for my hand, I let her take it. The memory hit me while I was loading the dishwasher, her favorite wine glass, chipped from that first fight we ever had. 2018, a hotel bar in Cincinnati. The blonde from procurement. I hadn't thought about her in years. Now, the details rushed back with startling clarity. The way she'd laughed at my stupid joke. How her knee had brushed mine under the table. That moment at the elevator, when we both hesitated just a second too long. I'd walked away, not out of nobility, but because the guilt had kicked in before desire could take the wheel. Now I wondered, if I'd been a little lonelier, a little angrier, a little more lost, would I have gotten on that elevator? The glass slipped from my fingers, shattering in the sink. You ever come close? She looked up from folding laundry, eyebrows raised. To what? Cheating. The question hung between us, dangerous as a lit match. Her hand still on Liam's tiny shirt. Before December? No. A beat. You. I told her about Cincinnati. The way her expression shifted. First shock, then something almost like relief, caught me off guard. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because nothing happened, but it almost did. She said it softly, like she was testing the weight of the words. We stared at each other across a pile of mismatched socks, realizing we'd never really known each other at all. Dr. Reynolds leaned forward. Most people don't understand how thin the line is between faithfulness and betrayal until they're standing on it. That's supposed to make me feel better? No, he said bluntly. It's supposed to make you honest. I thought of the blonde's hotel key card, left deliberately next to her wine glass. How easy it would have been. I used to think cheaters were a different species. I admitted. Now I just think they're people who didn't walk away. The confession left a metallic taste in my mouth, like I'd bitten my own tongue. That night, we lay back to back in bed, the space between us charged with unspoken truths. Her voice cut through the dark. If you had, would you have told me? I stared at the ceiling. I don't know. The honesty was brutal, necessary. Her quiet me neither might have been the most intimate thing we'd ever shared. The email hit my inbox at 9:14 a.m. Conference in Chicago. 3 days. Team expects you there. I stared at the dates. The first overnight trip since December. Since him. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, crafting excuses about sick kids or scheduling conflicts. Then I deleted the draft. I'll go. I told her that night, watching her face carefully. If that's okay with you. She didn't flinch. You don't need my permission. That's not what I asked. The silence stretched as she absently traced the rim of her coffee cup. The new one, from the cheap set we bought to replace the broken china. I'll be fine, she said finally. Will you? O'Hare Airport buzzed with strangers. A brunette in a blue blazer laughed too loud at her colleague's joke. A bartender with tattooed wrists slid a whiskey across the counter, without me asking. Everywhere, invisible lines waited to be crossed. I powered off my phone before I could text her. Not because I didn't trust myself, but because I needed to know if I trusted her. Day 2, 11:37 p.m. My hotel phone rang. Room service, said a woman's voice. I hadn't ordered anything. Wrong room, I muttered. Hanging up, 5 minutes later, my cell vibrated. Her name flashed on the screen. Hey, I answered, bracing. Was that you calling? Her voice was sleep rough. No. Why? Missed call from your hotel's area code at 11:30. The air left my lungs. I didn't call. A beat of silence. Then quietly, I know. Neither of us mentioned the obvious, that 4 months ago, she'd have lied, that I'd have checked her location, that we were navigating this minefield without a map. Go back to sleep? I said. You too, she whispered. The line went dead, but the connection held. The blonde from procurement was here. Not my blonde. Some other woman with the same sharp laugh, same perfume, same dangerous proximity to loneliness. She caught me staring and smiled. I smiled back. Then I paid my tab and went upstairs alone. She met me at the door with coffee, black, 2 sugars, and didn't ask questions. The kids tackled me before I could set down my bag. Normalcy had never felt so fragile, or so hard-won. The notification popped up on her phone while she was making pancakes. A Snapchat message from him. I saw it from across the kitchen. Saw the way her shoulders tensed, the slight tremble in her hands as she flipped the burner off. It's nothing, she said quickly, turning the screen face down. The lie was automatic. Old habits die hard. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't even move from my chair. Just sipped my coffee and said, show me. Hey, got fired today. Guess karma's real. LL. No apology. No request. Just a sad little grenade tossed into our kitchen. She exhaled shakily. I never unblocked him. He must have made a new account. I studied her face, the panic in her eyes, the way her thumb hovered over the delete button, waiting for my permission. What do you want to do? I asked. Her head snapped up. What? Your phone. Your choice. The pancakes burned, forgotten. Dr. Reynolds steepled his fingers. Progress isn't never feeling tempted. It's what you do when temptation knocks. He's not temptation. I corrected. He's a ghost. The therapist waited. She showed me the message. I admitted, that's new. And how did that feel? I thought of her shaky hands, the unspoken plea in her eyes. Like, we might actually make it. That night, I found her at the kitchen table, phone glowing in the dark. My stomach dropped. Then I saw the screen. Not Snapchat, but a therapy appointment confirmation. First session's tomorrow, she said quietly. Figure it's time I did my own work. I kissed the top of her head, tasting shampoo and regret. Proud of you. She leaned into me, her voice barely audible. I'm scared. Me too. For the first time in months. That felt like enough. The call came at 3:17 a.m. Her therapist's voice was calm but urgent. She's safe, but I need you to come get her. I found her curled in a leather chair in the office lobby, eyes red raw, clutching a wad of tissues. She looked up at me like a drowning woman spotting a life raft. It was my dad, she whispered as I helped to the car. All this time, it was always my dad. The confession spilled out in fragments between quiet sobs. The way he'd disappear for weeks when she was a kid. How her mother would say, he just gets sad sometimes, like that excuse the abandonment. The unspoken lesson, love is conditional, and you're always one mistake away from being left. I thought if I was perfect, her voice broke. But then I wasn't, so I became him first. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles ached, realizing the truth. She hadn't pushed me away in December. She'd been trying to beat me to it. Dawn found us at the diner where we had our first date, sliding into the same cracked vinyl booth. The waitress, same one as 8 years ago, just grayer, brought coffee without asking. I need to tell you something, she said, staring into her cup. That night with him, I didn't just go inside his apartment. My stomach dropped. I sat in my car for 20 minutes first. Texted you that I was running late. Almost drove away a dozen times. She met my eyes. I wanted you to stop me. The admission hung between us, heavy with implication. Why didn't you say that? Because then it wouldn't have been just my fault. The sugar packet burst in her trembling hands. We walked to the park afterward, past the playground where we'd pushed the kids on swings 1,000 times. I don't want to be like him, she said suddenly, but I don't know how to be any other way. I took her hand, not to comfort her, but because I needed the anchor. Then we learned together. A toddler shrieked with laughter on the slide. Somewhere, a dog barked. The ordinary world kept turning, oblivious to the tectonic shift in ours. That night, I dug out an old shoebox from the back of our closet. Inside, faded movie stubs, a dry corsage from prom, the key to that first awful apartment. Beneath it all, a photo of us at 19, her grinning with frosting on her nose, me looking at her like she'd hung the moon. I slid it under a pillow. Not because I want to go back, but because now, finally, we might have a shot at moving forward. The first cold snap of November arrived the same week as her father's letter. I found her sitting at the kitchen table, the envelope torn open, her breath making little clouds in the unheated room. She didn't look up when I set a mug of tea beside her. He's dying, she said flatly. Liver failure. Wants to make amends. The paper trembled in her hands. I recognized the hospital letterhead. Same place where Liam was born. What are you going to do? Outside, frost etched delicate patterns on the window pane. Beautiful, fragile, destined to melt by noon. I don't know, she whispered. Her father was smaller than I remembered. Shrunken into his gown, yellowed skin stretched tight over bones. The man who'd haunted our marriage now looked like he could be blown away by a strong gust. Kiddo, he rasped when we entered. She froze in the doorway. I felt her hand flex in mine, not pulling away, just remembering how to let someone hold on. Don't, she said quietly. Just don't. The heart monitor beeped. Somewhere down the hall, a woman laughed. We drove home in silence until she suddenly pulled over on the old county road. I thought I'd feel something, she said, staring at the frostbitten fields. Rage. Relief. Anything. I turned off the engine. The cold seeped in immediately. You're not him, I said. Aren't I? She touched the window, melting a tiny circle with her fingertip. I left you first, too. The truth of it settled between us, crystalline as the ice outside. That night, she wrote the letter. Not to her father. To me. 3 pages folded and left on my pillow, the creases sharp as the lines we'd drawn between then and now. I read it by flashlight under the covers like a teenager, her words searing me in ways anger never could. I thought love was something you had to earn back every morning. You showed me it's something you choose, even on the days we don't deserve it. The last line undid me completely. If you still want to, let's get married. Morning found us tangled together, the unheated house now warm with shared breath. Outside, the frost still held. But inside, something had finally thawed. She found it at a thrift store between the winter coats and old board games. A simple ivory dress with a tiny coffee stain on the hem. It's perfect, she said, holding it up in the fluorescent light. And it was. Not because it looked expensive or designer made, but because it looked like us, a little worn, a little flawed, but still standing. The cashier, an elderly woman with blue rinsed hair, smiled as she rang it up. Special occasion? Something like that, she said, squeezing my hand. We set the date for March 15th. No venue, no caterers, just our backyard and the oak tree we planted when we bought the house. The kids can be the flower girls and ring bearer, she said, sketching plans on a napkin. And my mom can make that awful carrot cake everyone pretends to like. I laughed, but my chest ached. This wasn't how I'd imagined proposing. Then again, none of this was how I'd imagined anything. She must have seen it in my face. We don't have to. No, I interrupted. I want to. And for the first time in months, I realized it wasn't a lie. The nightmares still came sometimes. Him, her, that damn apartment. I'd wake up sweating, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. She'd stir beside me, half asleep, her hand finding mine in the dark. No words, no empty promises, just her skin against mine, solid and real. It was enough. On the morning of the wedding, it rained. Not a gentle spring shower, but a proper downpour that turned our backyard into a mud pit. We stood at the window, watching the kids splash in puddles in their tiny dress clothes. We could postpone, I offered. She shook her head, her hair still damp from the shower. No more waiting. So we got married in our living room instead, with muddy footprints on the carpet and the smell of wet dog in the air. When the judge said you may kiss the bride, Liam shouted, "EW," and everyone laughed. It was messy, imperfect, ours. The envelope arrived with the morning mail, a single key taped to a note card with unfamiliar handwriting. One night, no kids, no past, just us. I turned it over my hands, the metal cool against my skin. She booked us a cabin. Same one we'd stayed in years ago, when we were broke college kids who couldn't afford a real vacation. Thought we could use a do-over, she said, watching me from the doorway. The last time we'd been alone overnight was before the affair, before the therapy, before we knew how fragile we really were. I slipped the key into my pocket, packed warm. The cabin hadn't changed. Same crooked porch, same scratchy wool blankets, same smell of pine and wood smoke that clung to everything. What had changed was us. We didn't rush to the bed like we had at 20. Didn't pretend the last year hadn't happened. Instead, we built a fire the slow way. Crumpled paper, careful kindling, patient tending. Remember when we thought love was easy? She asked, watching the flames catch. I stirred the embers. Turns out it's better when it's not. We sat on the porch, passing a bottle of cheap wine between us, the kind we used to drink because it was all we could afford. Do you ever think about him? The question slipped out before I could stop it. She took a long swig. Not the way you mean. A pause. Mostly I think about how close we came to losing this. An owl called in the distance. The fire popped. Me too, I admitted. And for the first time, saying his name didn't feel like picking at a scab. We made love like it was new again. Not the frantic, hungry kind from our 20s. Not the careful, walking on eggshells kind from after. Something quieter, more intentional. Afterward, she traced a scar on my shoulder from when Liam was born, and I'd raced the hospital in a snowstorm and slipped on the ice. "We've survived worse," she whispered. I kissed her palm, tasting salt and wood smoke. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall. The morning we were supposed to leave, a blizzard rolled in, thick, heavy flakes that buried the dirt road back to town under 2 feet of white. "Guess we're stuck," she said, pressing her palm to the frost-veined window. I expected panic. The kids were with their mother. The fridge was nearly empty, and we hadn't packed for an extended stay. But when I turned to her, she was smiling. "Good," she said simply. We spent the day like castaways, playing card with missing queen, burning toast in the ancient oven, telling stories we both heard 100 times before. At one point, she dug through the closet and emerged with a moth-eaten sweater I'd left behind on our last trip. "Kept it," she admitted, holding it up. "Smelled like you." I pulled it over my head, the wool scratchy against my skin. Still does. That night, the power went out. We huddled under every blanket we could find, passing a flashlight back and forth like a baton. "Tell me something true," she said, her voice muffled by the quilts. I thought for a long moment. "I used to be afraid of silence with you. Now I think it's my favorite sound." The flashlight beam caught the tears in her lashes before she clicked it off. In the dark, her fingers found mine. By morning, the storm had passed. We stepped outside into a world remade. Trees bowed under the weight of the snow, the only sounds our breath and the distant creak of branches. She bent suddenly, scooping up a handful of white. Before I could react, it exploded against my chest in a powdery burst. Asterisk you. I lunged for her, but she was already running, her laughter echoing to the still woods. We fell together into a drift, gasping and freezing and alive. "We should go home," she said eventually, her nose red with cold. I brushed snow from her hair. "We are." 20 years later, I found the dress. Not the ivory one with the coffee stain, that hung preserved in the back of our closet, wrapped in tissue like the relic it was. This was the other dress, the one she'd worn that night in December. It tumbled out of Miss Slable's box while we were cleaning the attic, landing at my feet with a whisper of fabric. Dark blue, slightly wrinkled, smelling faintly of detergent and time. She froze when she saw it, a stack of old photo albums slipping from her grasp. "I wondered where this went," she said softly. We stood there, suspended between past and present, the attic dust swirling in the late afternoon light. Then she picked it up, folded it neatly, and placed it in the donation pile. "Lunch?" she asked, already turning toward the stairs. I followed, leaving the ghosts where they belonged. Downstairs, sunlight streamed to the kitchen window as she buttered sandwiches with the same hands that had once held so much hurt. The washing machine hummed in the background, spinning its endless cycle of dirty to clean. I watched her scrape the crust off, still do it after all these years, even though the kids were grown, and realized this was the miracle no one talks about. Not the grand gestures or the dramatic forgiveness, but the ordinary, unremarkable act of choosing each other again and again and again, day after day, year after year, load of laundry after load of laundry. She caught me staring and smiled, mayonnaise glinting on the edge of the knife. "What?" "Nothing," I said, reaching for plate. And for once, it was the truth.